Gigantamax, initially the most hated Pokemon gimmick, seems to have aged better than anyone expected. While it was overshadowed with controversy, what if I told you that both Dynamax and Gigantamax was actually Pokemon's greatest gimmick of all time? Now, Dynamax and Gigantamax were Pokemon's Generation 8 gimmick, as the franchise likes to call it. So for some context, right, since Generation 6, every Pokemon game has had one of these new gimmicks, and the idea behind them is that they keep the franchise fresh with something always new and exciting, right? Now, Generation 6 introduced Mega Evolutions, which completely upgraded specific Pokemon from their initial evolution. It was essentially a 4th stage evolution for a lot of Pokemon. Gen 7 had Z moves, which were super powerful moves that Pokemon could access once each battle. Now, Generation 8 had Dynamax and Gigantamax, which made Pokemon become huge for 3 turns with all these added benefits. And the most recent Scarlet and Violet games have had the Terastallize phenomenon, which allows Pokemon to change typings during battle and adds crystals across their body. Though I feel now, as time has passed, Dynamax, which was one of the most despised Pokemon gimmicks, is actually becoming one of Pokemon's greatest success stories. And within this video, I'll explain why Pokemon got it so right with Dynamax. Though, to really understand the importance of Dynamax and its history, it's important to rewind back to 2018 when Pokemon announced the Sword and Shield games. So Sword and Shield were by far the most anticipated Pokemon releases of all time. For the first time ever, a mainline Pokemon game was going to be coming to console territory. So if you're unaware why this was such a big deal, mainline Pokemon games prior to Sword and Shield were always on handheld Nintendo devices. However, after 20 years, this was the first time a mainline Pokemon game would be releasing on a console. Now, not only that, but during this time, Nintendo was at the top of their game with Zelda and Mario reinventing themselves for the new era. The bar was super sky high, right? And fans weren't just hoping Pokemon would deliver, they were expecting it to match the quality. It only felt right because Breath of the Wild for Zelda was 10 out of 10 and Mario Odyssey was 10 out of 10, so now it was Pokemon's time to shine. Though this is kind of where it all went wrong, right? During the Sword and Shield reveals, it was announced that Pokemon's Pokedex would be cut more than in half, and this literally caused a shockwave throughout the entire community and was probably one of the worst times in recent history for Pokemon. I mean, even with Pokemon's TCG scene, we've had some pretty bad things happen, though I think this takes the cake. Now, during the same reveal when they announced the Pokemon Pokedex would be cut, Dynamax was introduced along with Gigantamax. And while I always found it to be an intriguing concept, it was kind of doomed to be hated from the start. It's kind of like, you know when you're already frustrated with someone and then suddenly everything they do just annoys you, even if it's not that bad? That's kind of exactly what happened with Dynamax. The community hit boiling point with the Pokedex being cut, so it just became another target of why Sword and Shield suck. Now, because of this, both Dynamax and Gigantamax never were loved from the get-go. They were almost like this reminder of how Pokemon failed to deliver to their fans. Now, to top it off, Mega Evolutions, which were fan favorites, also were leaving in Sword and Shield. So this was just another thing on top of all this. Though here's the thing, right? As time's gone on, I think both Dynamax and Gigantamax weren't bad at all. In fact, I actually think they were Pokemon's greatest gimmick of all time. However, if you are at this point in the video and you've been enjoying it, I just want to say welcome to the channel. My name's Phil and I put a lot of hours of research into creating this channel and creating these videos. Definitely feel free to subscribe to get some awesome Pokemon storytelling information. I'd honestly love to have you on board. Now, if you've played the games, you'd probably know how Dynamax works. In some battles, Pokemon have the ability to Dynamax where they turn into huge versions of themselves and their movesets completely change. Now, some Pokemon also could Gigantamax, which would completely reshape their entire appearance, and they would also get a unique G-Max move, which was purely unique to that Pokemon. Though while fans thought it was Pokemon just getting big for 3 turns, it was actually far more than that. In fact, Dynamax wasn't just a flashy gimmick, it was a complete game changer for competitive play. And still to this day, Pokemon competitive play has never been able to reach the versatility like when Dynamax was around. The reason it was so great was because how many layers it added. For starters, Dynamax Pokemon couldn't be flinched, meaning common tactical moves like Fake Out suddenly lost their edge. Now also, Dynamax Pokemon could hit through Protect, So this would neutralize any annoying players who would consistently use stall teams and try to slowly drain you. Now also, Dynamax moves couldn't be avoided, so players who would cheese battles with like Minimize weren't able to start their strategy. But what truly made Dynamax so brilliant was how every Pokemon move transformed into a max move, and this is where I truly feel Dynamax created insane versatility. So if you don't know how this works, every attacking move would automatically become a max move, and every type had a different max move, and they also had secondary effects. Let's say your Pokemon had a rock type move, right? Once Dynamax, that became Max Rockfall, which didn't just hit really hard, but it also summoned a Sandstorm. If you're using a water move, that would turn into Max Geyser, which would also set up rain. Or a flying move would become Max Airstream, and it would increase the speed as a secondary effect. These max moves didn't just deal damage, they literally shifted the entire battlefield. Pokemon battles added a whole new level of dimension with the ability to change the weather, change the terrain, and even boosting stats all mid-battle. That meant every Dynamax decision had layers, and its power literally lied in how much momentum could be changed. And that's why, under all the backlash, Dynamax might be Pokemon's smartest battle mechanic ever, and it created some of the most entertaining battles of all time. Now also, I just want to say, if you do love connecting with the Pokemon community, feel free to join my channel's Discord. You'll be able to speak with Pokemon collectors and enthusiasts. The server invite is in the video's description. Now, while Dynamax added strategy, right? Gigantamax created identity. As I mentioned, only a select few Pokemon could Gigantamax, and this created some awesome new designs. And they were given G-Max moves, which had totally unique abilities only reserved for that Pokemon. And when looking at it, Gigantamax was literally the fusion of Mega Evolution and Z moves. When you Gigantamax, the Pokemon's design would change dramatically, along with getting a very unique move that was only specific to them. These G-Max moves were super unique. For example, let's take Lapras with G-Max Resonance. Not only would it hit damage, but it would also add an Aurora Veil in one shot. This created a whole new level of strategy and made Pokemon feel super unique. And the designs of Gigantamax Pokemon were so unique as well. Take a look at Venusaur and how well it suited its design, or Hatterene with a complete change, and same thing with Blastoise and its G-Max Pokemon. It wasn't only the moves of Gigantamax Pokemon, it was the designs that were really great as well. And you know, that's why I've actually always had a very soft spot for both Dynamax and Gigantamax, as they kind of didn't deserve the hate they got when they first dropped. Honestly, when looking back, the timing was really rough for their announcement, and the fan base was already so frustrated, so any new idea that came about was just going to be met with immediate backlash. And I kind of always felt that in a different time period, Dynamax and Gigantamax would have been loved from the start. Though when looking back, I honestly feel time has been very kind to Dynamax and Gigantamax, and as the years go on, people will look back at this era of Pokemon as one of the greatest eras to ever exist. But not only that, right, when you wanted to obtain Gigantamax Pokemon, it was really fun and it was pretty challenging. You had to hunt raids for these Pokemon, right? It was really tough, and I always think rarity in Pokemon has always been a very interesting concept. And it kind of does make you wonder, what is the rarest Pokemon in each Pokemon video game, not including event Pokemon? Well, I answer that question right within this video here. Within this video that's appearing on screen, I go over each generation and I uncover which Pokemon was the hardest to obtain. If you love Pokemon and you enjoyed this video, click the video that's appearing on screen and we'll talk more about it there.